everyone! Welcome to our very final module lecture for the course. Congratulations on making it this far. In this module, we'll be wrapping up the course by discussing complementary and alternative approaches to healthcare and future challenges for the field. To start off, I want to give you a definition for evidence-based medicine. This is an approach that promotes the collection, interpretation, and integration of the best research-based evidence in making decisions about the care of any individual patient. In today's society, traditional biomedical treatment is held to this standard, with medical decisions expected to be made based on cutting-edge research. It's important to recognize that this has not always been the case. Of course, thinking back to our coverage of the history of healthcare development, this obviously hasn't been the case. Past approaches were limited in their ability to be tested in a really rigorous manner. While there are a number of approaches that have been developed outside of what we consider to be traditional medical treatment that used to be seen as alternative, many of these have been validated and become part of traditional biomedical treatment and advice. The scientific method and the empirical process represent the means through which new ideas and alternative ideas become part of traditional medicine. I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind from the get-go as we consider some approaches to health and healthcare that in our society are deemed alternative, though they may have been around for thousands of years and well accepted in other parts of the world. Holistic medicine is an approach that considers not only physical health, but also the emotional, psychological, social, and spiritual well-being of the individual patient. Holistic medicine usually involves practices that are considered to be complementary and alternative medicine, or diverse therapies and diagnostic techniques that fall outside of conventional biomedicine. This is usually because they've failed to be subjected to, or failed to be thoroughly investigated with empirical scientific techniques. Again, when we call something alternative medicine, it's alternative because it's outside of our conventional biomedical approach. But that doesn't mean that these aren't very much the dominant approach to medicine in some other parts of the world. And it certainly does not mean the claims made could not be validated should research investigate them. However, the cost of doing very high quality research on any kind of intervention can be very high, making sound research on the claims difficult, especially for researchers who were not trained in such approaches and thus are not expert in them themselves. There are three overarching ideas of complementary and alternative medicine. These are to provide health treatment that is natural, holistic, and promotes wellness. In terms of providing treatment that's natural, there's definitely been a quote, back to nature backlash against modern technology, science, and biomedicine within the CAM field. CAM, Complementary and Alternative Medicine. I think that there's very much a perception among many of the individuals who develop or have heavily practiced complementary and alternative medicine that a lot of the technology that has developed has had a negative impact on health across the board. As we consider new technologies, it results in increased pollution, increased waste and trash, increased consumerism, and an insatiable thirst for the next new product. All of these things can be contrary to overall health and well-being. There's a similar sort of backlash among many individuals practicing in the CAM field that a lot of the approaches to treatment in traditional biomedicine often are doing a great deal of harm in addition to any health benefits that they may be offering, through side effects of use or creating a problem in one system while treating another. Thus, there's a drive to find treatment strategies that are more natural, have less side effects, are less damaging to the environment, and thus to our health. The second big idea of complementary and alternative medicine is holistic medicine. I think the importance of having a medical approach that is very holistic. A focus on this has developed in part because modern medicine has become increasingly fragmented. You might have one primary care physician as your point person, but many individuals, especially as they get older and develop more health issues, may have 5 or 6 different doctors they go to. That can be really problematic when one doctor is prescribing one medication, another is prescribing a different medication, and no one is there to coordinate care or make sure that there's no potential for interactions. CAM is trying to get back to the type of practice of medicine where a smaller number of physicians, if not just one, are trying to treat the whole patient and doing it in a much more integrative way. The third big ideal is to promote wellness. Complementary and alternative medicine is much more focused on not only curing or combating a particular disease or illness or symptom, but rather on getting the whole person more healthy in terms of psychological functioning, their behaviors, their interactions with others, and even their spiritual or higher self than is traditional medicine practice from the biomedical model. In regards to who is utilizing complementary and alternative medicine, it's estimated that about 36% of the United States population uses some form of complementary and alternative medicine now. That's even if we're excluding prayer. If we were to include prayer, the number would jump dramatically. In the United States, the individuals who are most likely to utilize CAM practices would be females, those who are well educated, those who are in the upper socioeconomic status range, and those of European and Asian American descent. While data suggests people are open to or interested in complementary and alternative practices, these are not typically covered by health insurance. Thus, it may not be that individuals of higher SES are more interested in such treatments, but the individuals from the upper levels of socioeconomic status are the only ones who can actually, on a regular basis, afford to participate in these types of practices. However, Americans are spending about half as much money on CAM practices as they spend on traditional medical care. It truly is a big part of our culture's approach to medical treatment. However, it's not something that's necessarily widely acknowledged. Most of the people who engage in CAM treatment are doing so primarily for pain and psychological symptoms like depression and anxiety. Individuals may seek out CAM because they are dissatisfied with traditional medical care, have not found effective relief for their symptoms, and want to try every available option for treatment, leaving no stone unturned, or feel they're forming a better rapport with their CAM provider than doctors operating in traditional biomedicine. We also know there's evidence CAM treatment often is perceived to offer benefit by the patient. In general, there's pretty good support that complementary and alternative medicine is effective. In regard to saying CAM treatments are beneficial, keep in mind that it's hard to evaluate these as a system as a whole. It's much easier to evaluate the effectiveness of each individual technique for specific types of outcomes, some of which I will cover later. But it does seem that these strategies are effective for the types of problems for which people are seeking help for when using these practices. We have to be careful in considering effectiveness, though, because the research about these strategies is not held up to the same standard as traditional biological medicine, where controlled, double-blind clinical trials are required. In addition, critics of CAM claim that consumers are manipulated with unsupported claims about the benefits the treatment can provide. In addition, there can be some safety concerns because these strategies aren't regulated in the same way that traditional medical treatments are. In fact, the FDA warns against using certain herbs or supplements when you're taking prescription medications because herbs and supplements aren't neutral substances and do have an effect on neurotransmitters and other chemicals in the body. When someone is taking herbs or supplements and prescription medications, it's possible that these will interact with one another in a way that could be harmful. So while the people who are using CAM practices certainly identify them as effective and beneficial, there are limitations to the research done that limit how confident we can feel about the effectiveness. along with some concerns about ways in which such treatments could hold the potential to be harmful, since risks are less fully investigated or understood. Given that a lot of research on the benefits of CAM practices comes from people who have self-selected to engage in them, one of the things we do need to consider are expectancy effects. If an individual goes into a treatment expecting that it will work, and the only thing you're looking at is their self-report of whether it works or not, it's not surprising that we'd see reports of beneficial outcomes. One really good example of this is healing touch, which is sometimes called therapeutic touch. This is an approach often used in the nursing field where individuals are either actually laying hands upon and touching patients or putting their hands near but not actually touching patients. The idea is that it's sort of affecting people's energy and resulting in beneficial outcomes. There is research suggesting that healing touch is helpful in reducing pain, in reducing psychological symptoms, and helping people cope with cancer treatments better. However, there was a really interesting study done looking at whether therapeutic touch was a valid phenomenon or not. They had people who were therapeutic touch practitioners stand on one side of a divider and put their hands through 2 holes in the divider. Their hands were through, but they couldn't see what was happening on the other side. They had a participant pick either the left or right hand to put their own hand near. The idea is that if these therapeutic touch practitioners could really feel someone's energy from their body, that they should be able to accurately identify which of their hands the other participant's hand was near. However, the practitioners were no better than chance at guessing which hand an energetic field from the other participant's hand was near. This sort of seemed to debunk a lot of the claims of healing touch. However, it is possible these participants in the healing touch study did not benefit from the interaction because they did not believe it would help them, or because it was missing an essential element of the human-to-human interaction healing touch usually provides. So if healing touch does operate at least partially through the placebo effect, where improvement in symptoms takes place simply because the patient believes something will help him or her, is this a problem? We're learning more and more that expectations about treatment are very powerful and not all in people's heads. The starting point of having the belief that something is going to help you can actually end up resulting in physiological changes in the body that do make you feel better. However, the placebo effect does not tend to be super long lasting. It may be possible then that something like healing touch can only help people who believe it at least has the potential to do so, and maybe not those going into it very doubting and critical, but that this placebo effect is only the start, and that the longer term benefits can come from other things, like a calmed down nervous system and improved immune system function from a relaxing experience, or the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone, from being touched, or the sense that someone cares about you, which may motivate you to cope better and have an improved mood or optimism that something may help in the face of the hopelessness that may go along with having found no other effective treatment options. In other words, while some critics would say that CAM practices are felt to be helpful by those receiving them due to the placebo effect alone, others would argue that these treatments do inherently involve an intervention that is above and beyond the placebo effect alone. Here's a really interesting article about the pretty amazing power of the placebo effect. So how much evidence is enough when determining if someone should be recommended for or participate in CAM, or whether health insurance companies should pay for it? That can be a complicated question whose answer can differ a lot depending on who you're asking. For example, a patient who feels they're benefiting from CAM will likely have a very different answer than a health insurance executive would. However, I do think that the use of the scientific method and having appropriate standards for what we deem to be evidence of an effective treatment should be an important part of making healthcare decisions for both pragmatic and ethical reasons. Though for the same types of reasons, both practical and ethical, I think we need to do our due diligence in researching those practices that have been seen as outside the mainstream, with just as much curiosity and enthusiasm as antibiotics or pain relievers. Now we're going to move on to talking about some of the specific complementary and alternative approaches. There's no way I can cover every type of system or practice of holistic medicine in this lecture. However, showing my own biases, I'm going to touch on some of them with which I am most familiar and or which I think illustrate some of the important points of consideration for these CAM practices. The first one I'm going to talk about is traditional Chinese medicine, which has been heavily utilized in Eastern countries for over 2,000 years. It's only been offered in the United States as a treatment for about 100 years, so the history and use here is very short, while the history and use abroad is very extensive. Some of the main ideas of traditional Chinese medicine are that there is a vital life energy or force called qi that animates the body and flows through 14 meridians. These meridians don't exactly correspond to the physical structure of the body, like nerve pathways, although there is some amount of correspondence. People are thought to function best when these meridians or channels of energy in the body are flowing freely and openly. Problems develop when energy is blocked from flowing in a particular part of the body or becomes stagnant. One approach that is commonly used in traditional Chinese medicine is acupuncture or acupressure. There are 2,000 acupuncture or acupressure points on the body. In acupuncture, there's a formal system for utilizing acupuncture needles in the skin, or to utilize pressure in acupressure to try to open up meridians so that the energy will flow, or to clear out blockages in the energy so that the energy doesn't become stagnant. There are over 12,000 United States practitioners of acupuncture, and it continues to grow. Certainly, it's becoming more accepted, so much so that even our pets can benefit from the practice of acupuncture, as shown in this link. Research has shown that when people are undergoing acupuncture, they do have decreased activity in the limbic system, suggesting they're less emotionally aroused, and increased parasympathetic nervous system activation, suggesting they're relaxed. Acupuncture also results in endorphins being released in the body, combating pain and discomfort. There have been some really good empirical studies that suggest acupuncture is effective for the treatment of a variety of different types of pain. In fact, it was judged to be one of the most effective treatment strategies for lower back pain. We also know that it was similar in effectiveness to antidepressants when treating depression, so there's strong evidence for the effectiveness of acupuncture. One thing that's problematic, though, is that sham or fake acupuncture often works. However, it can be hard to clearly draw the line on what is fake acupuncture versus what is real acupuncture when needles are being inserted under the skin at different sites in both. Based on over 100 randomized controlled clinical trials and several different meta-analyses that have combined multiple studies into one analysis, I think the safest conclusion that we can draw about acupuncture is that it provides some patients with some degree of relief from pain, as well as from psychological symptoms. Research continues in trying to figure out how this strategy can best be used. For example, for individuals who were dependent upon cocaine, those individuals who received acupuncture had a much higher rate of being drug-free at a follow-up than individuals who got sham acupuncture or fake acupuncture or who just got informational videos. The next approaches I'm going to cover are the physical manipulation or touch-related interventions. The first one I want to talk about is chiropractic care. The idea that manipulating the body could have therapeutic value is not a new idea. This was put forth by Hippocrates long ago. However, these ideas were sort of advanced and differentiated into the ideas of chiropractic care in the late 1800s by an individual named Daniel David Palmer. He specifically was focused on the alignment of the spine. He felt like the body had the ability to heal itself and to maintain homeostasis or maintain balance when the energy could flow through the body without being blocked or without running into blockages. Kind of sounds like the underlying ideas of acupuncture, right? He felt that when there were misalignments of the bone, especially in the spine, there could be fixations where nerve impulses were not able to travel, and that this could lead to health-related problems. Thus, in chiropractic care, the spine is realigned to help energy move more freely. Chiropractic care is really enormously popular, especially for back pain. When we look at how many individuals in the United States have utilized chiropractic treatment in their lifetime, it's about 20% of the population. About 8% of Americans have utilized chiropractic care in the last year or two, so it's very highly used. What's interesting is that Medicare and a lot of insurance companies are starting to cover chiropractic care. However, the evidence about the effectiveness of chiropractic care is a little bit contradictory. There is some evidence, both in retrospective and prospective studies, which support chiropractic care as being equally effective in treating lower back pain as are other treatments. However, the data tends to be mixed at best. Also, even if it is equal to other treatments for lower back pain in effectiveness, that means it's equally effective in not being particularly good or helpful overall. While some research does show chiropractic care to have benefits, one of the biggest criticisms against chiropractic care is that misaligned vertebrae in the spine are really common and are usually harmless and usually clear up on their own. When you look at people who have vertebrae that are misaligned who undergo chiropractic care and improve, the chiropractor would say, "See, look, it works." However, if you were to follow those same people over time, even if they didn't get chiropractic care, after a period of time the issue may very well have cleared up on its own. For this reason, it can be hard to come to a firm conclusion about how beneficial chiropractic care actually is. I will say that my personal reading of the evidence around this is that the fact that insurance companies are covering chiropractic care is not necessarily due to the fact that there's a great deal of research supporting it as a strategy, but may instead be due to financial and cultural or even political influence and pressures. It's also important to recognize that there can be some real risks associated with chiropractic care. There are a number of cases where individuals appear to have suffered broken necks or other serious injuries due to undergoing chiropractic treatment, particularly when individuals had their necks aligned. Another type of manipulation therapy is massage. While chiropractic care focuses on spine and bone, massage is focusing on the body's soft and connective tissue. Massage has been utilized for its therapeutic properties and benefits for over 4,000 years in many other alternative systems of health. About 5% of the American population uses it for a CAM purpose. While massage does seem to be effective as a strategy for treating various types of pain, more research is really needed to understand what and how strong the benefits are, why and how benefits occur, and whether the benefits are worth the cost. Yoga, Qigong, and Tai Chi are all types of therapeutic manipulation where someone else is not necessarily involved. There's not a practitioner working on you to manipulate parts of your body, but rather a teacher or leader who's leading you through a sequence of movements and poses where you're essentially manipulating your own body for therapeutic purposes. And these practices can certainly become self-guided as well. Yoga has its roots in India. Many of you are very familiar with what yoga is now, where there's typically a sequence of poses that people flow through in sync with their breathing, which has only really been in existence for the past 100 years or so. Yoga can be more on the challenging side of fitness with something like power yoga, or can be more restorative and restful, like with slow flow restorative yoga. Qigong and Tai Chi are both also types of physical practice where individuals are moving through postures and movements, and there's a focus on linking movement with breathing. Tai Chi is a particular type of Qigong which has evolved into a martial art. On the whole, research is pretty consistent in linking participation in yoga, Qigong, and Tai Chi with improving psychological and physical health. A final category of alternative and complementary medicine that I will touch on is that of energetic approaches. This would include things like Reiki, healing touch, and therapeutic touch. Very much the idea of energetic approaches is that a practitioner can intervene on the behalf of a client and sort of gather or access healing or positive energy that can be harnessed and directed toward the client or patient, who then physically and psychologically benefits from it. These energetic approaches are a component of most alternative medical systems, so you see patterns of the same ideas showing up in alternative medical systems that developed in different parts of the world. The real challenge with these is that it's very difficult to research them in any kind of high-quality, meaningful way that goes beyond simple self-report. How do you measure something that you can't see, you can't hear, and only some people say they can feel? How do you measure this energy or this life force that people say they're exerting an influence on? There's no denying that we are energetic beings. We have energy flowing through our bodies. We have electrical impulses in our neurons going constantly. There is some sort of energy that is dynamic and that is constantly having momentum in our body that is related to being alive and being conscious. However, if we can't measure it, it's difficult to know what's actually happening with that energy and difficult to know whether it can be harnessed and used for therapeutic purposes. What we know and understand about CAM practices is ever evolving. For example, in the last few years, there has been just an explosion of people using and marketing essential oils. I have heard claims about essential oils that seem easy to buy into, such as that it can help reduce headache pain or the itch from a bug bite, to those that seem very far-fetched, such that essential oils can treat cancer and keep you from getting the flu. For essentially none of these claims have I seen any research provided to back them up. Yet thousands of people get online or go to their local stores to purchase these oils. Some people even ingest them. It's a wonderful thing that complementary and alternative medicine continues to develop, though it's important to investigate potential risks of such treatments, to thoroughly and diligently examine whether they provide authentic and meaningful benefits, and to thoughtfully consider how our existing healthcare system can be improved through their utilization. I really hope we can get to a point where we'll be able to utilize the best of both worlds, both traditional biomedicine and CAM. Certainly, if someone is diagnosed with cancer, I think that most individuals are going to want the options that traditional medicine provides, like surgery or use of chemotherapy or radiation. But I think many individuals, if given the choice, would also want to try to benefit from alternative approaches. Maybe they want to know how to modify their diet to reduce inflammation, and to learn how to meditate and get massage therapy so their nervous system can be more relaxed and their immune system can work more effectively. I certainly think that this will lead to a system of healthcare that is evidence-based, but also nurtures the whole person, not just the body, by focusing on psychological, social, and even spiritual health, as well as ensuring the experience of getting health care is one where one's needs and preferences are considered, where the relationship with providers are respectful and collaborative, and where agency and control are enhanced, not taken away. Which gets me thinking about the future of our field of health psychology. Of course, only time will tell what factors are occurring now and in the near future that will impact upon how health psychologists try to help people prevent disease, identify disease early, and obtain treatment for it and cope with illness once it develops. However, there are certainly factors we need to be thinking of and preparing for now. For example, a hugely increasing focus on primary prevention only makes sense. We can prevent people from having to get sick and save individuals and our society as a whole a ton of money. Win-win. However, we have to start shifting our priorities so that there are money, people, and time devoted to prevention. We have to figure out how to really reach people so they will change their behaviors early enough to prevent a problem. We have to get companies or the government to set aside money for this purpose. We have to make decisions about what to target. While there are challenges, I so hope we move in this direction. Perhaps the ease of accessing and decreasing costs of biometric trackers like the Fitbit will help with this goal somehow. Which brings me to the impact of technology. Already there are huge sites devoted to participating in mental health care via video conferencing or email or text. This is a significant departure from the history of therapy taking place in a therapist's welcoming office. It's unclear whether these types of therapies will be as effective, as something from the personal relationship seems to be lost, at least in my opinion. However, for generations raised with the internet, perhaps this is not experienced in the same way. Even doctors' evaluations are starting to take place with video conferencing. There are certainly advantages, especially for people who live in rural areas or who have barriers to going to a therapy office regularly, such as working night shift or not having childcare. But new risks are also introduced, like the security of the very private data you might share online. Obviously, I can't comment on all the societal factors that may impact upon health psychology. But another central on my mind is the impact of global warming and natural and man-made disasters and conflicts. If predictions about global warming are true, we may be facing a situation where, worldwide, the natural landscapes are changing and large numbers of people are displaced, and food, but especially water, become less secure and more scarce. This, or an uptick in human conflicts like we're already seeing worldwide, or further natural disasters, especially in combination, could lead to a real destabilization of society and political stability, which would have a tremendous impact on physical and mental health. This would probably mean many more people would be going with untreated medical conditions, have difficulty engaging in healthy behaviors, and develop or see an exacerbation of mental health problems. This is certainly what happened after Hurricane Harvey, as discussed at this link. While this is a huge bummer of a note to end on, I do think health psychologists and other allied professionals may have a lot to offer if this situation ever occurs. By understanding the risks at hand and helping with the motivation, means, and support for positive change, these individuals likely will be the ones with the needed knowledge and skills to lead and help others in the face of challenging circumstances, assuming that the means are feasible at all. We'll end there. Fingers crossed for all of our sakes that the future is a brighter one, where health psychologists can lead and help people improve health and quality of life from comfy, cozy offices and classrooms, and go home to healthy, happy families in safe and secure homes, feeling peace and happiness. And I wish the same to you all. Thanks so much for taking my course this term, and I hope it got you thinking and seeing the world around you as a little more interesting and health as a little more complex and important than you already did.